Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. So, last time around, we wrapped up the last level of spells for the Bard, and so with that done, today we are going to be diving right on into the gear that you want to get for your Bard, specifically taking a closer look at the magic items, or even just the items you want to make magical as you go along through your adventuring career. Hopefully, living a long, prosperous, successful life, whatever that looks like at the tabletop. So, we're just going to go ahead and roll right on into this. And we're going to kick things off with a very, very incredible piece of armor, and that is Celestial Armor. It's going to cost you 22,400 gold pieces, so it's an expensive piece to pick up. But it's +3 chainmail that counts as light armor and allows you to fly as per the spell once per day, and it only has a -2 armor check penalty. You'll get a total of a +9 armor bonus while wearing this, and it counts as light so you can sleep in it, and the -2 penalty is incredibly negligible. This pairs well for any archer-focused build, whether that's a ranger, bard, rogue, whoever. This will be incredibly useful for you to pick up, and I definitely recommend you do so. Absolutely incredible. And then as far as weaponry goes, you're going to want to get a longbow, preferably composite longbow, one of strength as you can, but you only need to go up to whatever your current strength bonus is. Because, well, there's no point in trying to exceed that, so, don't sweat that. But this will be your damage dealing option when you're not casting spells, or when you're not focusing more on doing bardic performances, but that gets less expensive in terms of action cost as you advance in levels. So, when you're flying high, whether using the spell or the effect from Celestial Armor, you can rain arrows down below and belt out your performances in order to boost your allies. You're going to be dealing 1d8 damage per shot before any feats and bonuses are applied, and this does have an excellent range for you. The speed enchantment in particular will help you with damage output, and well, if you're so lucky as to get this up to being a +5 weapon, coupling that with, say, deadly aim and any number of other bonuses, you could be looking at a pretty solid amount of damage per shot before you even start factoring in feats like rapid shot, many shot, things like that that are just going to absolutely increase the output of arrows that you have going down range towards your opponents. And to help you keep pace with doing that, we have the Efficient Quiver. This comes in at 1,800 gold pieces, and 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons players will know this as Ilana's Quiver. You can magically store up to 60 arrows or arrow-sized objects like wands, 18 javelins or rods, 6 staves or your bow, or a number of other bows. You can store those things in there. Should also mention spears count as staff-sized as well. But where this gets to be handy is most quivers you're going to be looking at about 20, maybe 30 arrows. So being able to keep 60 on you at any given time will be handy. But say you only do 55, you keep yourself 5 spots open for various wands that can be applicable across a wide range of different situations. So definitely something to keep in mind. In javelins, you're not going to be doing much with those, and honestly, you may not be doing much with too many rods either, given the fact that we're more of an archery build rather than focusing all out on spell casting. But that doesn't mean you can't carry rods for the party's wizard, cleric, or sorcerer, or whatever spellcaster is accompanying the group. So, having a few spots open to carry the gear and distribute it as needed will absolutely be beneficial to the party as a whole, as well as yourself, because well, let's face it, if you spend a little bit of your own money, pick up a useful staff and keep it handy, and then when the need arises, you just drop that down towards the wizard, well then, bam, there you go. You've just added to the party's combat ability as well as the utility. So definitely an incredible pickup. It's a piece of equipment that very few character classes can afford to do without. And the fact that it's only 1,800 gold pieces makes it relatively cheap in comparison to many other items. And speaking of other items that can get expensive really quickly, Rings of Protection. These are on basically every build. Every character will benefit from one of these. This will cost you anywhere from 2,000 up to 50,000 gold pieces. You may not be a frontline character, but that doesn't mean you won't be getting attacked, especially since you're obviously boosting and assisting your allies. Boosting your armor class will be important, and this can add anywhere from a +1 to a +5 deflection bonus. So this can stack with multiple other sources. Very, very handy to have. Although the 50,000 gold pieces, you may not be buying those. You're more than likely you're going to find them and prize them off of somebody's cold corpse from the ground. So, if you pick one up, great, but you don't count on seeing too many +5s. But from there, we come to Cloak of Resistance. It's another item that is going to essentially be on every build. It costs anywhere from 1,000 to 25,000 gold pieces, and like boosting your armor class, pumping up your saves will be massively helpful. And this will give you a boost from, again, anywhere from a +1 to a +5 on all 3 of your saves. So Fortitude, Reflex, and Will saves. Absolutely great to have. You're going to be the target of a lot of spells if you get poisoned, although that doesn't come up a whole lot, or not always anyways. Having these resistances in place will be helpful, but especially important is the will saves. The fact that you have some decent spell casting means you really want to be protected against being taken control of, and causing mass disruption and chaos amongst your party and allies. But moving on from there, we have Circulative Persuasion. This one's relatively inexpensive as well, coming in at 4,500 gold pieces. You're going to get a +3 competence bonus on charisma-based checks, which includes performances. So, since that affects your performances, that means it also ends up affecting the skills that you can substitute in your performance for. So, this all the way around is really, really good. So, if you're using oratory and you're trying to do bluff or do diplomacy, well, you just make a performance check and you get this +3 on top of whatever else you have going on for yourself. Absolutely incredible. But from there, at a slightly more expensive option, we have the Headband of Alluring Charisma, coming in at 4,000, then 16,000, and 36,000 gold pieces for a +2, +4, and +6 bonus to your charisma score, respectively. Honestly, this is pretty damn good. I mean, at 36,000, you're more likely to be able to pick one of these up at that nice +6 bonus to your charisma score. The only thing I would say is that because the Circulative Persuasion gives you a +3 bonus on your charisma-based checks, which includes your performances, and Headband of Alluring Charisma is going to do the same thing, you're almost better off picking up the Circulative Persuasion, but you won't be hurt by having this if there's no Circulative Persuasion available. Just keep in mind that the +6 is a bonus to your charisma score, which translates to a +3 charisma bonus on top of whatever else you might have. That's basically the same thing as the +3 competence bonus on all of your charisma-based checks. So, if you're given a choice between the two, I would say go for Circulative Persuasion, but you're certainly not going to be hurt all that much by picking up a Circulative Alluring Charisma. The only difference is going to be the cost in gold pieces, which if money's tight, you're going to want to go with the cheaper option and then have some gold left over to pick up some of these other options, should they be available for purchase. And also, going on from there, we have the Belt of Physical Might. Now, why would you want something like this? It's going to cost you 10,000 or 40,000 or up to 90,000 gold pieces. So it's going to be massively expensive unless you get this as a reward, a piece of loot that you pick up off of an opponent. This will grant you a +2, +4, or +6 enhancement bonus to 2 of your ability scores. And what I recommend to help with this particular archery-focused build is Dex and Strength to help with your attack and your damage output when coupled with a composite longbow of Strength. So if you end up lucky enough to have a +6 enhancements bonus, that's a +3 to your attack and a +3 to your damage output if you can get a composite longbow of Strength that has that level of enchantment on it, or if it has the adaptive quality enchanted onto it, so that way it automatically adjusts to whatever your strength modifier is. That's going to pay dividends if you have that enchantment, and that's one I definitely recommend, especially since that enchantment does not count as a +1 bonus. It's just a money expenditure. Also, something to help round out your spellcasting abilities, should you want to flex in that area a little bit more, and I recommend you do, Ring of Spell Knowledge. Anywhere from 1,500 to 24,000 gold pieces. This will hold one spell for you, and the level depends on which type you get. A type 1 ring holds first level spells. Up to type, if you get the type 4, it holds 4th level spells and lower, but it will still only hold one spell. You will need to make a DC 20 spellcraft check to teach the spell to the ring. And it's definitely helpful that it's a spell that's from your spell casting list. Otherwise, you start to run into more difficulties. The spell, if you're trying to teach it, say, Goodberry, first level druid spell, it's not something that's in your spell list. That will count as a 2nd level spell in that case, because it's not a spell that you're readily able to cast. You can teach it to the ring, but that makes it more difficult for you to store that knowledge. So, teaching the ring something that is from your spell list will be eminently much more useful and helpful for you. And having another 4th level spell certainly doesn't hurt in the slightest. But we have a really, really, really good item here, and that's the Snap Leaf. It costs 750 gold pieces. You break this crystalline carving of a leaf to activate it, and it triggers a Featherfall and invisibility effect upon you. Someone dispelled your fly enchantment? Well, now you have a cheap insurance policy. You got bull rushed off a cliff or the side of a building? Snap this bad boy open, Featherfall safely down, and be invisible to boot. They may still know that you're there, but they'll have a harder time pinpointing where you're at unless they're using some higher end magic or gear that allows them to, say, use true seeing. Granted, if they hit you with glitter dust, it amounts to the same thing, but you get the idea. Being invisible after being in such a vulnerable position is massively helpful. So definitely one that you want to keep handy, and maybe even have a couple on hand. Spread them out amongst the party. And then from there, we come up on scrolls and wands. Now, for scrolls, something I would recommend would be like Summon Monster 4. That's going to be a solid investment for you for a lot of encounters. And some illusion spells are also great when you need them, but they're not always going to be a constant need. They're not always going to be readily applicable. Whereas Summon Monster 4, you can summon monsters for combat and non-combat purposes, depending on some of the effects that they have. Recall a player using Summon Monster to get just a little swarm of large badgers going, and just started tunneling their way through relatively soft earth to get underneath a castle and try to collapse a section of wall. So you can get a lot of utility out of spells like that. And then for wands, I really recommend Cure Light Wounds. It's going to be the best bang for your buck as a wand and for healing. But in doing so, you'll be able to keep one of your 1st level spell slots free for another option, which is handy. Mage Armor is also another excellent choice as a wand. Which other ones you pick up just kind of depends. You can pick up a Wand of Haste, Fireball. You can certainly make use of those items. Or even if you're just storing a couple extra for the party wizard or cleric or whoever, definitely taking some time to invest a little bit of coin into these items will not hurt you in the slightest. Certainly something you want to do. But by no means are these the only options available to you. I mean, given the wideness of time and the absolute plethora of situations you may find yourselves in, there's always going to be an item that works better with a particular build, or even if it's not working from a mechanical perspective, if it just fits with the story, I consider that infinitely much more important than just raw mechanics. It's useful to understand the mechanics and how to play the game effectively, but there's something to be said for the stories that are generated, and really just having an item that fits with your character, the build, the story, the personality. It's way more important than the mechanics. But with that said, is there anything that you would throw in on this particular list? Certainly there's some stuff that I left out. There's also a lot of stuff that maybe doesn't work so well. For example, we're not exactly a melee build. We're not going to be whipping out a greatsword. So something like that was not on the list. But, well, still, go down to the comments below. Let me know what you thought. What items would you add in? Which ones would you take away? I'm more than happy to join in the conversation and keep it rolling right on along. Or if you hated it, go on down, hit the dislike button, and let me know in the comments why you hated it. And if you did enjoy the video, there's going to be a couple of more popping up over this way that you might possibly enjoy. One, something I've done recently. The other one, the almighty algorithm has determined you might like it as well. Or, hell, if this hasn't been the first stop here at the Gamer's Den for you, well, you must be enjoying something. Go on down there, hit that subscribe button. We'll be more than happy to have you join us here. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.